all times. The fourth is the faculty used when distinguishing between the pure and impure. The fifth is the faculty used when it reflects impressions from one object to the other incessantly. It retains the past infinite manifestations of one's own existence with all their good and evil. It ripens into the knowledge of the causes of present and future joy and sorrow, which are the unfailing results of our deeds. It is able to call up the past, lay it instantly before our mind, and to call up our finite knowledge of the future. Therefore the phenomena of the three worlds are mind-made. Without mind, then, there is practically no objective existence. Thus all existence arises from imperfect notions of our mind. All differences are differences of the mind. But the mind cannot see itself, for it has no form. We should know that all phenomena are created by the imperfect notions of the finite mind, therefore all existence is like a reflection in a mirror, without substance, only a phantom of the mind. When the finite mind acts, then all kinds of things arise. When the finite mind ceases to act, then all kinds of things cease.
Next, the faculty of thought. This comes out of the fifth as above. In common men this is very strong. The consciousness of self and of environment and all the imperfect ideas arising from these, trying to distinguish between all the objects of the senses, is called thought, and is also called the independent faculty, as well as the faculty of distinguishing things. This increases with the senses, with desires, and with their sorrows. As to the origin of imperfect knowledge working in the finite, common men cannot understand this, nor can the wisdom of the two lower schools understand it. Only the bodhisattvas of higher Buddhism, when they begin to get right faith, and when they can examine things properly and test the nature of the true reality, can understand it. Spiritual men can obtain a small insight into this, but even the higher saints, when they have attained to their perfect state, cannot understand the whole of it. Only Buddha understands all. The mind from the beginning is of a pure nature, but since there is the finite aspect of it which is sullied by finite views, there is the sullied aspect of it. Although there is this defilement, yet the original pure nature is eternally unchanged. This mystery only Buddha understands.
When we speak of the original nature of the mind, eternally without thought, we call it eternally unchanged. As the human mind originally does not know the true model, the mind does not correspond with the outward universe. Then thought suddenly begins and is called the finite thought. Confusion from correspondence with the objective. One can be delivered from this confusion by the two lower schools and be kept far from it in the station of full faith of the great school. Confusion arises through feeling corresponding with the objective. One can gradually avoid this by the cultivation of the means of deliverance in the full faith of the great school, by the cultivation to the first station in the pure state of the mind, all the confusion will be gone. To understand these and the stations below, see Guide to Buddhahood, translated by the author, 1. Confusion through knowledge of differences by correspondence with the objective. By means of the second stage of separateness from the world, and by means of deliverance in the seventh station, confusion will be gone. Confusion through objective forms not corresponding with one another. By means of the eighth station of freedom from form, all the confusion will be gone. Confusion through subjective perception not corresponding with the objective. By means of the ninth station, when the mind is free, the confusion can be got rid of.
Confusion through subjective sensation not corresponding with the objective. By means of the complete 10 stations of the saints, one may enter the state of Tathagatahood, Buddhahood, and be delivered from this last of the confusions. As the finite mind does not comprehend the universal soul, it begins by the correspondence of faith to examine into things and to rid itself of confusion. In its progress towards purity of mind, it step by step gets rid of confusion, and when it arrives at the state of Tathagatahood, it is able to be free from it altogether. The meaning of correspondence is that the finite mind's ideas of the universal true form differ according to their stages of confusion, or enlightenment, and that the perfected finite knowledge and the outside universe are exactly the same. The meaning of want of correspondence is that the finite mind is unenlightened and has never known these differences, and that its knowledge and the outside universe are not the same. Again, the confused mind is a hindrance to thought and darkens the original wisdom of the true reality. Ignorance is called the hindrance of wisdom and darkens the natural wisdom of the world. What does this mean? It means that, owing to the confused mind, its perceptions, its objects and thoughts are not in accordance with the eternal nature. It means that, owing to the universal true form being eternally at rest, without being finite or temporary, ignorance and unenlightenment differ from the eternal, therefore, they are unable to follow the perfect wisdom of all the universe. Next, the finite state. This is of two kinds. First, the rough, ordinary state, when it corresponds with the finite mind. Second, the fine extraordinary state when it does not correspond with the finite mind. There is also the lowest of the ordinary, such as the state of common men, and the highest of the ordinary. There is, too, the lowest of the extraordinary, such as the state of the Bodhisattvas, and the highest of the extraordinary, such as the state of Buddha. These two kinds of the finite state arise from the different extent of the influence of ignorance. As to cause and effect, the cause is unenlightenment, the effect is the manufacture of a false imperfect world. If the cause is removed, then the effect is removed. If the imperfect cause ceases, then the imperfect mind which does not correspond with the real universe also ceases. If the result ceases to be erroneous, then the mind which corresponds with the real universe also ceases to be erroneous.
Question 4. If the finite mind ceases, how can there be continuation? If there be continuation, how then do you speak of finally ceasing altogether? Answer. What is destroyed is only the finite state of the mind, not the mind's being, just as wind in relation to water is a moving power. If there be no water, the effect of the wind is not apparent, there is nothing to show it. If the water remains, the state of the wind is made apparent, only when the wind ceases does the moving of the water cease. It is not the water that ceases to exist. So ignorance in relation to the true real nature is made apparent. If there were no true real nature of the mind, then all existence would not exist, there would be nothing to show it. If the true real nature of the mind remains, then finite mind continues. Only when the madness of finite mind ceases will the finite mind cease. It is not the wisdom of the true reality that ceases. Influences. There are 4 influences: the confused and the pure, incessantly at work. The first is a pure influence called the true real one. The second is the cause of all confusion, called ignorance. The third is the confused mind, called sensation. The fourth is the false world as known to the senses and called the objective.
Influences may be thus illustrated. Clothes have no scent, but if anyone smoked them with incense, the clothes would then be perfumed like the incenses. So it is with influences. The true reality is pure and has really no confusion coloring it, but ignorance in man colors his views, so that there is a confused state. The confusion caused by ignorance has really no true purity, but the true reality influences the mind, so that there is an effort after the true purity.